And I think we're ready to go. So welcome, everybody. Good evening and welcome to this timely presentation and discussion brought to you by the Rochester League of Women Voters and AAUW, the American Association of University Women. My name is Anna Froehling, president of LWV Rochester, and I will be moderating this evening's discussion. LWV is a volunteer organization active at the local, state, and national level to encourage citizens to vote and participate in government. We welcome new members to join our efforts to empower voters and defend democracy. I want to thank AAUW for co-sponsoring this program, and I will turn the microphone over to Barbara Knudsen, the president of Rochester chapter of AAUW, to say a few words.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'm pleased to be here and tell you a little bit about AAUW. I want to thank our member, who is also a member of the League, Amy Cockett, who suggested doing this presentation, and we are happy to be able to collaborate with the League of Women Voters. AAUW is an organization that has been in existence for over 100 years nationally and in Rochester. Although the title indicates an organization composed of only university women, we are now open to anyone with a two-year degree, women and men, who believe in our mission. We also offer student memberships. Currently, there is a bylaws change under consideration, which would eliminate the degree requirement altogether, and that will be voted on this spring. AAUW's mission statement is to advance equity for women and girls through research, education, and advocacy. Several of our webinar programs have been developed to empower women, such as AAUW Work Smart, which is training for early and mid-career professionals on negotiating for fair salaries, better benefits, and advancement opportunities. AAUW Start Smart, specifically designed for college women entering the job market, teaching effective salary negotiation techniques to boost confidence and negotiation skills. And AAUW Money Smart, which is a program aimed at providing all women with the personal finance information they need to ensure their own financial security. If you would like any more information, please feel free to contact me, and I will turn it back over to Anna. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. And I'm just going to go over a few housekeeping notes for this evening. Following the presentation, we will have time for questions. Please enter your questions through the Zoom chat box. LWV members will be monitoring questions and passing them on to me to ask during the last portion of the program. We will try to get to as many questions as possible during the question portion. Zoom instructions: this program is being recorded and will be made available via a link on our website and Facebook page. You are welcome and encouraged to turn your cameras on. To avoid distractions, attendees' microphones will remain muted. Open the chat box to ask questions, find additional information and links to information about attending upcoming LWV events, AAUW events, volunteer for either of our organizations, and if you want more information about our organizations. I saw that there are a few local representatives here this evening, and I'll go over that later. Now on to our evening's program, and we welcome everybody. People experiencing homelessness is a harsh reality across the country, including many in the Rochester area. We have three speakers who will share with us how our community and local governments are responding to the need for temporary shelter, no income or low income housing, as well as affordable homes. Our speakers this evening are Dave Dunn from Olmsted County, Jeff Urban, Outreach Pastor at Bear Creek Church, and Senator Liz Boldon, Senate District 25. Now I would like to turn the program over to our first speaker, Dave Dunn. He is the director of Olmsted County Planning Department and the Olmsted County Housing Redevelopment Authority, HRA. Dave will get us started by bringing us up to date on the current situation and the local government initiatives to address it. And I'll turn it over to Dave Dunn.
Good evening. Can you see my slideshow?
Not yet.
Uh-oh. See, what did I said 5 minutes ago.
Coming up, I think. There it is. It's coming up.
Okay. I was just joking with everyone as we were getting started. I said, "Oh yeah, we got here a little early and this will work perfectly." And then 15 minutes when we're doing it for real, there'll be a glitch. Thankfully, it was a relatively minor glitch and we'll be able to move forward. First of all, I just want to thank you all for the invitation to be here tonight and to present to you all on housing in Olmsted County and provide some background information of the current situation really around affordable rental housing, home ownership opportunities, and people experiencing homelessness. I hope as we talk tonight, just one thing kind of very broadly is that you walk away feeling like this is certainly a big problem in our community, but it is one that we can handle. I think if we all work together, we are doing great things. And I know just by looking at some of the people on this call tonight, we're amongst an amazing group of people who are really making an impact. And so just honored to be here, frankly. So to start with a little bit of level setting, the first part of affordable housing, I think, is what's defining affordable. And so for most people, if I was to ask the 65 of you or so on the call tonight, you probably would have 65 different responses. And so for us, when we talk about affordable housing, we're really talking about housing in which the resident pays no more than 30% of their income in rent or their mortgage. If you get more than that, it becomes a challenge to make other payments, or if something happens, it can become difficult to maintain kind of your income and whatever else. So that's affordable housing. The next number on there is workforce housing. That's really people who are at about half of the area median income. And again, we like to throw on lingo. We'll talk more about this later. That's about $50,000 or slightly over a year for a family of four. And then market rate housing. Market rate housing is housing that the market can create without any subsidy at all. So to get us started, just a little bit about the housing as a continuum. I think as we think and look at housing across the country, it's really about creating a working housing continuum here in Olmsted County, across the state of Minnesota and everywhere else in the country, starting with people who are experiencing homelessness, who are literally unsheltered, finding them shelter options, moving them into housing with services. And then we start to talk about affordable rental housing, home ownership, market rate rentals, and then ultimately market rate home ownership. And for our community to thrive, we really do need a thriving housing continuum at all pieces along the way. So it does have an impact across the continuum as we create additional housing units. And so again, I think a couple of slides ago, we talked about the area median income. And so just to provide you with a little bit of information about what that is here, you can see I have highlighted what the area median income is in Olmsted County by family size. So you can see there 30%, 50%, 60, 80, and 100%. So for a family of four, the median income in 2023 is $111,000. So just again, to start to talk about, to try to level set. And that's one of the challenges with housing is a lot of us use slightly different definitions of things. So hopefully that helps to level set when we talk a little bit more tonight. The second thing to level set about is affordable rents. What we consider affordable rents would be anything that I have circled below. So these are the rents that the largest producer of new affordable housing in the United States, the Low Income Housing Tax Credit Program. These are the rents that the Low Income Housing Tax Credit Program allows in Olmsted County. So when we talk about affordable housing and affordable rent, for a two-bedroom apartment, we could be talking about $1,500 a month. For an awful lot of the families that we work with, $1,500 beyond their availability to pay. And so even when we talk about affordability, it can be a challenge. So a little bit about the need for rental assistance in Olmsted County. So currently there are around 65,600, give or take, households in Olmsted County. You can see there that about 20,000 of those households are renters, 46,000 own their homes. And of those renters, you can see that 49.1%, so 9,636 households in Olmsted County are paying more than 30% of their gross income in rent. which accounts for just under half of all rental households in our county. So when we talk about challenges with being able to afford rent and rent burdens, when that starts to occur, anytime anything happens, whether that's child care being lost, maybe you're sick for a few days, your car breaks down, you're really living on the edge at that point. And so when something inevitably happens, and it does to all of us, those are households that are really in a dangerous place as far as being able to maintain their stability. The last number on here is 1,403, and that's the units of rental assistance that we have available in Olmsted County. Now, they're divided up amongst about 20 different programs, and I've just kind of highlighted some of the big numbers here. But you can see one of the major differences with housing and SNAP and medical assistance is that it's not an entitlement. So, for example, if you qualify for SNAP benefits, you automatically are entitled to them. If you qualify for medical assistance, you automatically qualify for it. If you qualify for rental assistance, you do not automatically qualify for it. You have to find the availability. And that is a huge challenge for people who are struggling to pay rent. So that's kind of the need. And what are we doing to address this need locally? The first thing that we're doing is we're getting additional units of rental assistance. I'm pleased as punch to see Senator Boldon on the call tonight. She's done an amazing job at the state capitol lobbying for additional rental assistance opportunities and housing in general. And you can see here that it is starting to pay off locally. We can see that with our rental assistance, and just to give a little bit of background, generally, again, with all of our rental assistance programs, the property owner pays 30% of their income in rent, and the rental subsidy pays the rest. That way, as income fluctuates, rent remains affordable. It's an incentive for people to continue to earn additional income, and it allows people to grow and thrive. Of those approximately 1,400 units of rental assistance that we had, about 400 of those have occurred or brought to us over the last 5 years. And I think the number that I'm most excited about is that bottom number with about 250 new rental vouchers on their way here right now. And again, most of those are through action from the legislative session that was just concluded last year. And those vouchers are kind of coming out, and we're working on getting new rental assistance programs up and needed, because as you saw, there's a much greater demand for affordable housing than there is a supply of rental assistance. The other way in which we're helping with this need is by creating affordable housing options. So I have two things up here on the screen. The first one on the left is kind of a picture of our new Mayowood 2 apartments. These are 36 units of senior housing that was just awarded funding from the state of Minnesota. We'll be breaking ground on these hopefully in the fall of this year. The picture on the right of the screen is the residents of Old Town Hall. That was recently in the news as the Olmsted County Board approved our purchase of that facility, which will create about 45 new, very affordable housing units. One other thing I'll call out kind of in this area too is that Jeff Urban's group, Bear Creek, and then kind of the Mayowood Acres campus, they actually have another project that's coming online as well. So they were working with Three Rivers Community Action Agency, and across the street from our Mayowood project, they were fortunate enough to get state funding as well. So you'll see two kind of new housing projects going up on Mayowood Road, right between the Waters and the old Crossroads College campus this spring, as both of those projects come underway. So really for us, it's about continuing to do two things to address the need for affordable rental housing. Number one, it's to create new affordable units and preserve the ones that we have. And then secondly, it's to get additional support for rental assistance, because we also know that we need to have rental assistance for people in order for them to thrive. So that's kind of the first part of my presentation. And that's really, like I said, about rental housing. And now I want to talk a little bit just about home ownership, because again, as we talk about housing as a continuum, it truly is. And it really is important to know that if we can free up rental units because of home ownership, if we can build a community that thrives, we all do much better. So right now, the demand for new homes, and this is construction wide for single family new homes, is about 733 homes a year in Olmsted County. We are only on pace to meet about 60% of that goal. So we are not seeing enough homes being built. And that's a challenge because when you look at the median home sale price over the course of the last 15 years, you can see that over the last 5 years, home prices have gone up over 30%. When you talk about the affordability of housing and you talk about the opportunity for people to transition into home ownership, that is a huge difference. Couple that with, while the increase was relatively mild in 2023 compared to 2022, the other impact of interest rates, we did an analysis, and the impact on interest rates for a $300,000 mortgage was about $600 to $700 a month. So as we make this harder and harder for people to transition into home ownership, they become left behind in the housing market. And again, it makes it harder for us to help transition people through the housing continuum so they get the opportunity to thrive. This is kind of the other side of that statistic. So again, we talked about the home sale prices, and this is just for the city of Rochester, but if I was to pull this for the entire region, it would be the same thing. And it's single family home building permits. And again, this goes back, if you can't see, from 2002 to 2023. That line on there is the demand that we have currently for just Rochester alone of 440 new single family homes a year. Again, this is just the city of Rochester. But if you were to pull this for the entire region, the numbers would be very similar, and the fact that we're just not building enough homes. So you can see that our demand is for 440 new homes a year to be built. The last year that we accomplished that goal was 2007. So when we start to look at our needs and our community, one of the needs that we need to do is we need to be building new homes. We need to be providing people with those opportunities to move into our community, to grow roots in our community, and to thrive in our community. And providing home ownership opportunities is really key to doing that. So how are we addressing these needs? So the first thing I put on here is really, it's the Economic Vitality Fund that the city has passed as part of their local option sales tax. A big part of how they want to invest that $50 million is really into increasing the production of home ownership in our community. So by helping with fee reductions, by tax abatements, by looking at everything that we can do to help to minimize the cost of a new single family home, the goal really here is to all of us work together to increase that number to hopefully get closer to that goal of 440 a year. And then another specific project that I just wanted to highlight that's going on right now that the Olmsted County HRA is working on is the Red Hawk Drive Southeast lots. These are 10 lots on Red Hawk Drive Southeast in far southeast Rochester. And we entered a purchase. Actually, I just signed the purchase agreement today for these lots. So this is really, truly fresh ink as we kind of talk about it today. To acquire these 10 lots. And what we're going to do is attempt to build affordable home ownership options on these 10 lots. So we're trying to look at cost constraints, whether that means different types of amenities in the home, whether that means getting economies of scale by being able to build 5 to 10 houses at one time. We're really trying to test out to see what will work, one, from the construction perspective to help contain costs, and then two, also from the market perspective to see what the market is interested in producing. One of the things that we hear a lot of is, why don't builders just build more affordable or cheaper homes? And really there's two reasons for that. Number one is they're afraid of the risk. They're not sure if anything other than what they build will sell. And these are small businessmen and women who are in business to maintain their families and to be able to grow as business people and to thrive. They're not in the business of taking unnecessary chances. And so for them to do something different, they have to know and understand that it could work. And so part of what we want to do is show them that it can work. The other reason that they don't is that there isn't necessarily the demand to, at least there hasn't been. They were able to be successful building higher end homes and being able to sell those homes. And so the profit margin is the same on a $500,000 or $600,000 house versus a $300,000 house. So it's more profit for the builder to build the higher end home, and it's not twice as much work. So what we're trying to do with this project and others is to try to incentivize the market to really think about this differently, to try to prove our concept that there truly is a market for these homes to be built, and that they're going to be something that the market can really thrive and that they'll sell. And so that's what we'll be working on over the course of the rest of 2023 and 2024. So now, on that note, I kind of want to transition into my third and final topic as I take a water break. Homelessness in our community. You know, one of the first questions when we talk about homelessness is how many people are we talking about that are experiencing homelessness in Rochester or in Olmsted County? The reality is there's no really easy way to give a number. And so what I try to do is I put 3 numbers out here that are real numbers, but all of them have a little bit of an asterisk with them. The first one is that in July of 2024, our team, along with many of the partner organizations that are on the call tonight, went out and surveyed people who are unsheltered in our community and found that there were 173 people who are unsheltered, meaning that they were either staying in their cars or that they were staying in camps in July of last year. It should have said July of 2023, not 24. But a second measurement was that over 500 people qualified as experiencing homelessness in the Rochester public school system in the last school year. Now, their definition is slightly different than ours, and so that's why the numbers are always a little bit different. And then the third number is that at least 1,000 people utilized our coordinated entry system for people experiencing homelessness at least one time in 2023. So as we talk about the need in our community, it's certainly there, it's certainly significant, and it's certainly something that as we're working to become the community that I know we will be, we need to work together as a team to look at this issue. The second point I want to make on there is that our current shelter is too small. And so we do need a new shelter facility in this town. Unfortunately, our proposal for a housing stability center did not receive state funding in 2023. And so we had to kind of go back to the drawing board, and I'll talk more about that project in our next slides. But what I can tell you for certain is that the current shelter facility is outdated, and frankly, it's too small. So we have 44 beds at the Rochester Community Warming Center. Catholic Charities does an amazing job of working in that facility, and they do great work, but it's too small. The other thing that they've done for the winter season is that the Salvation Army has partnered with Catholic Charities and operated an overflow facility. So we've been able to house additional 20 to 25 people a night. So when we talk about the need right now, I think we're getting into the 60s to near 70 people who are sheltered every night in our community. And the last point I want to make on there, and just to kind of reiterate, is that we do know what solves homelessness, and housing with services does solve homelessness. We have seen success after success. It is hard work, it is time intensive, but when we connect people with the resources needed for them to thrive, we can address homelessness in our community. So just a little bit about our local homeless response system. And I think one of the really great things about working here, and one of the things I love most about my job, is that I get to work with these and other amazing agencies every day. And so whether it is our friends at the Landing who are doing great work with their day center and really helping to meet those day-to-day needs and basic needs, they do great work with their healthcare as well, really allowing them to kind of contribute to our response system. As I mentioned earlier, Catholic Charities oversees our overnight shelter in the community. Salvation Army does some additional services. They do their noon meals. They do rapid rehousing. They do some work with families as well. And then you can see there that Dorothy Day also has a shelter facility in our community. And actually, it's the oldest facility that's been here long before a lot of the other services, or at least some of the more recent ones. They've been doing this now for almost 30 to 35 years. And then the last one on there is Family Promise, which addresses family homelessness in our community. Each one of these plays a role in our system and really does have a function as we look at how do we create a response system that can hopefully make homelessness rare, brief, and non-recurring. But just a couple pieces to this specifically. So permanent supportive housing. It's one of the things that you may hear from time to time as we talk about addressing homelessness. And really what it is, it's a combination of housing with services. The picture here that you see is the picture of our 105 building located at 105 North Broadway. This is 18 units of permanent supportive housing. We actually started it during COVID as emergency housing for people experiencing homelessness and really just kind of kept operating it ever since that time. We bought it in 2023. And right now it operates as a facility for 18 people who are previously experiencing homelessness to have a place to call home. It allows people to grow some roots. It allows them to address some issues. You know, one of the things that I had an opportunity about a year ago now to visit with some of the tenants in the building, and their stories are just heart-wrenching. You know, and the impact of housing on the lives of the people that we're able to serve is amazing. It was one woman who was able to finally heal because she had had surgery on her feet 4 times, but each time she was discharged into homelessness and unable to really heal properly because she didn't have a place to call home. It was another gentleman who was able to rebuild family connections and on and on. And again, it's just amazing to see the work that our partner agencies do. But really for us, it's about connecting people to the services and housing necessary. Another project that I want to highlight that I'm very proud of is the partnership of really Family Promise and the leadership of Family Promise Rochester to create a new family shelter in our community. This is a partnership between Olmsted County and Family Promise, but really the county's role in this is just to provide the facility. And I know that Family Promise, with their extensive expertise in our community, will thrive in turning this facility into our next family shelter. Prior to this completion of this new facility, there were really only about 3 beds for families experiencing homelessness in our community, or space for 3 families. We'll be able to address this. We'll be able to get this up to hopefully 10 to 12 families in any one given time. So Family Promise is an amazing organization, and continuing their support in the community is amazing because they're doing things like this every day. But one thing that we've done here just recently that I think is new is that all of us as the provider community and the county and the city have really stepped back and said, okay, how do we really bring these efforts together, and how do we get some common language, and how do we really look at the big picture? And the state has this vision to end homelessness by preventing it whenever possible, or make it rare, brief, and non-recurring. And we really looked at that language and decided collectively that that was really what we wanted to do here in Olmsted County as well. You know, our number one goal should be to prevent anyone from ever experiencing homelessness. But if we're unable to do that, what can we do to make it rare, make it brief, and make it non-recurring? So make it so once somebody enters our system, we have the resources for them right away to get housed, to connect to whom they may need to connect to, and be able to make that relationship work. And the way that we'll be doing this is a guide called Built for Zero. So you'll be hearing more about this in the community over the next upcoming months. This is kind of a sneak peek of what you'll be hearing about. So it's really a framework around working with individuals. I think one of the things that our service providers are really good at right now is really building those relationships. And so Built for Zero is really about creating a list of people in real time who are experiencing homelessness, connecting with those people in real time and getting them to the resources that they need. So this will be a framework we'll be working on for the next several months. We'll be coming together over the course of the summer to really come out with some community recommendations to implement this. But for us, it's just another opportunity to really continue what we've been doing, but to put it on a larger scale. And how do you do that? Well, really, a lot of it is it's about outreach. It's about connecting with people. You know, one of the things that we have heard from time to time is that people are service resistant. And, you know, I think we have to remember that the population of people who are experiencing homelessness have had significant trauma in their life, and significant number of people who have come and asked or demanded things from them or told them that if you just trust me or do this, I'll be able to get you housed or whatever. And so for us, it's building those relationships. And that's just not for the county. Again, that goes for all of our partners across the continuum. It's really all of those partners working together to build that relationship and then prioritizing that relationship that works. This particular facility is our Empowering Connections and Housing Outreach Center. And I just want to spend a brief moment and talk about that. It is located next to the Rochester Community Warming Center. So it's located at 206 4th Street Southeast here in Rochester. It's open every day from 7:30 to 2:30, and it has social workers on site who will work with people on their housing related issues. It's a drop-in center and it's open to the public, so you don't have to be experiencing homelessness to go there. It's one of the places where I know if we have faith communities or other folks on the line tonight who are always kind of wondering, where do I send people or where do I kind of refer if I get comments or if I'm working with somebody that just has some housing questions or I'm not sure where to go. It's the Echo Center is the place, or the housing stability line that's on there is the place, because it's important to know we do have staff that look at that. We are trying every day and we're successful in connecting them to resources. And then that last line on there is just to understand too that housing's a process, that it's not a transaction. I think one of the things that we want to think about when we look at this issue is that if somebody comes into the Echo Center or if somebody comes into the landing, that we can just turn right around and provide them with, you know, the keys to their own apartment. And the reality is there's a lot of underlying issues and concerns there that in order for them to be successful in housing, we really need to kind of address, stabilize, understand what those issues are. A lot of times it can be as simple as getting people the documentation that they need, you know, whether it's a social security card or a driver's license or different things like that to help connect them to what they need in order to obtain an apartment of their own. And we're committed to this approach. I think one of the things that's exciting is that we are really focused as a group on there. And I probably should have added Family Promise on there as well. That was an oversight in this slide. But I think we're all really committed to working together as a team here and really working together to say, how can we take the great things that have already been done in building our response system? Because if you think just a few short years ago, the landing wasn't here. We didn't necessarily have shelter in our community. We certainly didn't have the amount of transitional housing that we do now. So we've done a lot of good work in this area. It's unfortunate that the demand has continued to grow even greater than the supply that we've been able to create. But really for our partner organizations, it's trying to be committed to that overall goal, which is to prevent homelessness if possible, and if not, to make it rare, brief, and non-recurring. So in closing tonight, I just wanted to kind of have a little bit of a call to action. I think it's always good to have these conversations and to kind of lead with some things. Number one, I want to let you know that I'm optimistic. I have seen the amazing work that the community has done, that we've done together. I do think that when we talk about affordable housing, number one, it is a big problem in Minnesota and across the country. But I do think it's something that we are addressing, and given the continued resources to address, I think we can continue to address it. One of the things I truly believe is that everybody does deserve a place to call home in Olmsted County. It's the Minnesota way. Home is the foundation for a healthy community. I mean, I think these are all just things that we all want to help our neighbors here. And I think that's one of the things that makes Minnesota and Olmsted County and Rochester an amazing place to live. And we're making progress, and together we will address these issues. And I do believe that, and these aren't unsolvable issues. I think when we work together, we are making progress and we can continue this, but we do need to continue to get resources at the federal, state, and local levels. So I think that call to action is to continue to say, hey, what are you doing to make sure that people have a safe, affordable place to live? And making sure that as we talk about those public conversations this year, as it is an election year, that that's one of those areas that we're talking about. So I am actually right at 30 minutes, which never happens. And so here is my last slide. I'm more than happy to have any follow-up conversations. I'll put my contact information in the chat. And with that, I will end my slideshow and stop sharing my screen.
All right, I think I am on next. So I will,
I'm going to do a real quick introduction
Yeah.
to you, Jeff.
please.
Again, this is Anna Froling with the League of Women Voters. Jeff Urban, he's the outreach pastor at Bear Creek Church, who will describe what Bear Creek Church members are doing with the property, the former Crossroads College, to provide housing opportunities. Jeff is also the Project Development and Community Outreach Director, Coalition for Rochester Area Housing, and will add his perspective from that role. And I just want to encourage people to enter any questions you have for Jeff or Dave Dunn or Senator Liz Boldon in the chat, and we will ask them after our three speakers are done. And I'll turn it over to you, Jeff. Go ahead.
Sounds great. All right, let me share my screen here. There we go. All right, so right now I am in the storage room at our main building here. Behind me is a bunch of stuff. We got a lot of stuff going on tonight, but it kind of reflects what we've done out here. When we took this campus over, you know, the Bible College had closed up. Crossroads College had been here for almost 50 years, 45 years. And we just figured we had to make every square foot do something, something good for the community. So we knew affordable housing was a big opportunity. We looked at space for our church to lease and for nonprofits to lease. And so tonight I'm in a storage room because we've got youth group here doing stuff and a women's Bible study. They have a support group downstairs happening. So that's kind of how we roll here, which has been really fun. But we did rename the campus Mayowood Acres. I know to the chagrin of Dave Dunn probably, because we have lots of Mayowoods here on this road. So I'm going to give you a little overview here of the campus. So kind of like a 500-foot view here. And so this is kind of from the north looking south. There's 37 acres here. And before we fell into this project, we had done a lot of, I call it Habitat for Humanity kind of projects. We worked in mobile homes in the area, a lot of them in Rochester. And we went from one house to the next, and we helped people with limited resources basically make their place livable again. And so, you know, no one wanted to do this work, which I don't blame them, because it's kind of like an old tin can, some of these old mobile homes. But we did that for probably 4 or 5 years. And then in 2017, this opportunity came up to buy the campus. We had a connection with the folks that held the mortgage, and the college had closed. You know, we're kind of in a position where the economy wasn't firing all cylinders yet, so it sat for sale a little bit. We bought it for $1 down. We bought it for $4 million. And we basically had a handshake agreement. And we came in for 10 months and we said, we will take every dollar we get here and we will put it back into making this more rentable, cleaning up units, fixing them up. And then we'll buy this when the city allows us, because we've got some rezoning to do basically. So we did that. And in 2018, in the summer, we finally had everything rezoned and moved into here. When we took it over, there were 42 apartments here, a bunch of commercial buildings, some stuff in usable shape, some stuff wasn't. But the front of the campus here, right along Maywood Road, is this number 1, these 2 front parking lots. And I just want to show you what our plan is for that. We are going to put in here a project with Three Rivers, as Dave alluded to. It's right across from the Maywood 2 project and from the waters. And so this will be a workforce housing project. It's a low-income housing tax credit project. It was one of the 2 that were funded in Rochester this year. And so we're partnering with Three Rivers. They do a lot of these kind of projects. They're fantastic. What's really great about Three Rivers, I think, is that they worked with us for probably about 4 years before this, maybe 5 years. And they got some grant money and they helped us with master planning on the campus. So again, we took this over. Our whole goal was, how do we really help to make more affordable housing in Rochester? It was a big deal, 6 years ago, 7 years ago now, and it's even a bigger deal now. So this was kind of the culmination of a long project. It's a 48-unit building. There's a little look at the view of the front of it. And so underground parking with 3 levels. And again, workforce, meaning a lot of families. So there's a lot of 2 and 3 and even 4-bedroom units here, which are really hard to find that are affordable. So that project, along with Dave's project with the county, we're hoping to start in the fall and have construction for a good year there probably. If you go to number 2 there in my slide, right next to that pond, that's the building I'm in now. That was called the Academic Building. And we basically have leased this out to our church and some nonprofit groups. We've got a support group that meets downstairs a few nights a week. A lot of folks are in recovery at the campus out here. And we've even have a couple of for-profit groups that do some renting as well. Over at number 3, that long row of jig-jaggedy kind of housing there. In the upper units, you've got 4-bedroom units, and we have 13 of those. And those are really for families. I feel like we've got some of the best rates in town. Our single rooms are $440. Our studio apartments are $650 to $700, and that includes all utilities and high-speed internet. Our 4 bedrooms are just under $1,200 a month. So we really tried to price things where we can pay our bills, but we can keep things very affordable, and it helps people in transition. It helps them to save up, to buy a house, to move on in life, to get reunited with their family. So that number 3 there represents a number of units. Up on the top are the 4 bedrooms. On the end are 18 1-bedrooms, and below were actually commercial spaces when we took over: the library, an old student center. And with the help of the Coalition for Rochester Area Housing, Mayo Clinic, and others, we had donations come in, and we did some borrowing from the bank, and we created 17 studio apartments out of that existing space. That 4-1 and 4-2 in the back there, that represents about 72 units of housing, 72 beds, I should say. And it also represents housing in a space for Doc's Recovery House. So if you're aware of Doc's Recovery House, they do a fantastic job. They're a newer nonprofit, and they're a local upstart. And their focus is twofold. It's going to be helping people who've finished a drug alcohol rehabilitation program, maybe let's say a 30-day program, and they need a place to stay. So it's kind of reentry housing. They have great supportive staff here, but they also actually have beds for people before they go to treatment. So someone decides they want to go to treatment, but there's no bed open. And sometimes they end up going back to wherever they're living, and they continue using for 3 more days, 5 more days, 2 more weeks, right? Until that bed opens. Then they may not make it. They may decide they don't want to go to treatment any longer. Doc's has 24/7 staff here. They've got a women's house now and a men's house, and they can take people who decide to go to treatment right away, have them stay here, have them go to treatment, and then come back here for that reentry and the supportive housing. They have GRH funding, so they supply meals as well. In a couple of our 4-bedroom units, Catholic Charities does a master lease there, and they're fantastic. They've got refugee families who are new to the States, and this really helps to settle them here for, probably 2 to 4 weeks, maybe on average. And this helps them find a place, a safe, secure place now, while they get their documents together and get their own lease in Rochester. Olmsted County has traditionally had anywhere from 2 to 4 units on a master lease. And we do have a number of young moms over the years who've been out here. If you know the Jeremiah program, The county has a program similar to that. It's kind of pre-Jeremiah. And so they've had some young moms and their little ones out here in a master lease with us and other folks from the county that make it a good fit. And Bear Creek Church. So Bear Creek Church purchased the campus with $1 down. We started remodeling, had a lot of community support, borrowed some money, created a separate 501c3 in the chat there. I did put BCDC, so Bear Creek Development Center is the 501c3 that owns and operates the campus. I'm the director of that. And so my role at the church, a lot of my time is spent at Bear Creek Development Center. About a year ago, I did do a little switch and I'm part-time at Bear Creek and I'm more time, not quite full-time, but more time at the Coalition for Rochester Area Housing. So I won't talk about that really in this presentation much, except we are really working with Dave Dunn and the county, the city, DMC, Mayo Clinic, and a lot of you in the community trying to find ways to both create more affordable rental, affordable ownership opportunities, as well as preservation, and not just preservation of rental, but also looking for more housing for folks with services, for people that are in the BIPOC community as well, and for seniors. So we're really trying to kind of hit a lot of those areas in a lot of the work that we're doing. And we're a funders collaborative. So those folks have brought in a bunch of money and we're trying to find the best way to leverage that and get into our community to create more affordable housing. So that's kind of a little, that's my other side job. But Bear Creek Church has been integral to kind of get this thing off the ground. And I will hit my next slides. This is our project we just finished up this last summer. I don't know if it's loud for you. I can hear these kids doing all this stuff. So hopefully it's not too loud and distracting for you, but they're popping balloons right now. So I'll just keep on and keep focused here. But this was our old garage. So it's a walkout. So behind this building, you can walk out and there's a big storage area. And these were bays for working on vehicles and such. And so that was before, and this is after. So we converted the garage into 6 studio apartments. Here's an addition of what it looks like inside. So this is roughly how they look. You've got a great room with a kitchen, bathroom, and then the kind of the bedroom around the back in most of the units. This one here, we actually did a partnership with the veterans community. So a number of groups donated, Teed Up for the Troops, the DAV, American Legions, right? A whole bunch of groups around the area donated to this. And MACV, who in the state is one of the leaders in really trying to end homelessness amongst veterans, they're doing the case management currently for these units. So there's 6 units and they're $700 a month. That includes everything. And MACV brings in the clients and really helping veterans get on their feet. So in that continuum that Dave showed, that one slide, I'd say we're not on the homeless side. We're kind of in maybe a couple steps in from there. We found that tenants here that do really well are ones that have been able to secure work or they're in recovery actively and they kind of need that next step. So we don't have a lot of social work and other supports here. We have some. We have a staff person who mentors women who are coming out of incarceration. She also works with Olmsted County with the corrections there, and also a number of women who are coming out of treatment programs. They're coming out of DOCS, they're coming out of Teen Challenge. Sometimes they move here as individuals, and then over time, they work their recovery, they get more work, they move into a 4-bedroom or a different unit, and they get their kids back, right? Or get reunited with their family. And so a number of folks in the campus have been in recovery and continue to be, and that's always been a really neat opportunity for us. So I think that gives kind of a good overview of the campus. What we're doing now, we have 37 acres. It's not all buildable, but my hope and dream is that just like the project in the front that we're going to start this fall, we can find more ways to leverage every square foot here for more housing. So I will leave it at that and let the next presenter carry on here.
And so this is Anna again with League of Women Voters. Thank you, Jeff, for that presentation and the map and the visuals. That's helpful. And all the good work you're doing. We have our next speaker. It's State Senator Liz Boldon. She's Senate District 25, which is the northern portion of Rochester, City of Orinoco, and portions of Olmsted County, the rural areas north and west of Rochester. Senator Boldon is the Vice Chair of the Senate Committee on Housing and Homelessness Prevention. She will update us on the current work of this committee, and we will go next to Senator Boldon. There we go.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I am delighted to be here with you all tonight on a call with 75 people, which is amazing. I want to thank the League of Women Voters in coordination with AAUW for hosting this and planning this. I think it's excellent. I feel very fortunate to be in a community where, first of all, we have such expertise and talent. I have already learned things tonight in listening to the previous two presentations. And I see many both formal and informal leaders on the call here tonight. So grateful to be in a community where, again, people care so much about this issue that they're on a Zoom at this time on a Wednesday night. So thank you all for being here. I'm going to spend I don't have a PowerPoint presentation. I'm just going to talk. I'm going to spend just a few minutes talking about things that we did last session briefly, and then I'm going to move to what's sort of happening now. So last session was a budget year, and we had a probably once in a generation opportunity and passed a $1 billion housing omnibus bill, which stood up many new programs and made historic investments in ways that we have not done before and have not been able to do before. So a couple of things I would lift up from that include rental assistance. As Dave Dunn mentioned, we did not previously have a state rental assistance program. We now do. And while it doesn't meet all of the needs that we would like it to, the program is now in place, and moving forward, we can continue to make investments there. Housing is one, if not the only program where you can qualify for assistance, but that doesn't mean that you may get assistance, because there just may not be a unit available to you. And so still work to do there. Other investments within the bill from last year include shelter capital. We know that shelter saves lives. And so having those resources across the state and our community as well is important. We created a fund for first-time homeownership, like down payment assistance. We know that is a barrier for some people, just sort of getting over that hump. If they don't have, parents to borrow money from, or, they're able to afford a mortgage payment, but just that down payment, those startup, if you will, costs are a barrier. That first generation homeowner fund program. We enacted a number of tenant protections last session. One of which I would note is we created an eviction notice process. Prior to that, some people may be surprised to know Minnesota did not have a requirement to notify tenants that they were going to be evicted. And so now there is a 14-day notice period where tenants have to be notified that they are being evicted. And the last thing, and this is not an all-inclusive list, but the last thing I would lift up from last session is workforce housing grants. And this was touched on earlier, but that workforce housing, we heard from businesses across the state saying, we have positions, we have open jobs, and we might even have people willing to take those jobs, but there's no place for these people to live. And so creates a grant program to build workforce housing, something that we know is necessary. So lots of really good work happened last session. Moving to this session, which is not a budget year. We are awaiting the February forecast, which we will get next week, and know, if there will be perhaps a supplemental budget. I don't anticipate the Housing Committee will get a budget target this session. So meaning I don't anticipate we will be allocating funding to housing this session, which is normal. Essentially, it's not a budget year, so it's a policy year. So there's lots of things that we can do and are looking at doing policy wise. So I will name a few of those. They sort of fall into two categories. The first is zoning. And so this is really, you know, we're of course looking at ways to get and keep people housed in affordable ways. And so looking at sort of some zoning opportunities to move us in that direction. One is a bill that I'm carrying, which is the ability to do shelter by right. So in industrial zones or commercial zones, for communities to have the ability to have shelters in those zones, community zones. Another sort of policy that we will be discussing is sort of the missing middle and increasing density in our communities. So allowing more multi-unit, multi-family housing, so duplex, triplex, fourplexes, allowing those in more areas. Another policy I would name is something that happens in many other countries, particularly in Europe, and some other cities in the US, but is single stair apartment buildings. And so right now for units over a certain number of floors, and I'm not going to remember how much it is, but for, you know, higher apartment buildings, there need to be 2 stairwells. There is a conversation about a policy to change that. So for smaller units, so I think it's 3 or 4 stories, there would be the ability to just have 1 stairwell, as well as another means of exit, you know, outside. So that would be, it's another policy we're looking at. And the other one I would name in the sort of the zoning category, which you may have heard about because it's getting a little bit of buzz lately, is eliminating parking requirements, which would do just that. At the state level, it would eliminate parking requirements for housing units. This does not have anything connected with spots for folks with disabilities. That remains. That's not what this is about. But the other parking spots, there would not be a requirement for a number. That doesn't mean that cities and you know, businesses, for instance, could still set, you know, make those decisions for themselves, and or cities could set policies, but it would eliminate the state requirements to have, say, X number of parking spots for X number of units. So that's sort of the zoning pieces that I would name. The other sort of big bucket of policies that we are looking at this year is tenants' rights. And I mentioned we did some of that last session, but more to do to sort of level the playing field, if you will, between tenants and landlords. That there's many times there's a power imbalance there. And so just making that system fair for everyone. We will be hearing a bill tomorrow that does a number of things, one of which would eliminate application fees. This is something that I hear about quite a bit, that as people are searching for apartments, you know, they may apply to 3, 4, 5, 6 different places because it's difficult, it's competitive, and they're paying an application fee for each one of those places. That adds up pretty quickly. So that we'll be debating that tomorrow in committee. I also have a bill up in committee tomorrow around the right to repair. So for tenants who have something broken or non-functioning in their unit, they would have to give their landlord a notice that, hey, let's say my dishwasher is broken. I reach out to my landlord and say, my dishwasher is broken. I need you to fix it. If they don't hear anything back in 14 days, the tenant can pay to have the dishwasher fixed and then deduct that from their rent in the future, that amount. And there's requirements for notification, and there's requirements for they would have to get 2 bids and take the lesser of the 2. There's a requirement they have to show the receipt to prove that they have paid it. So it's fairly detailed, but the gist of it is, and this comes from stories and real life scenarios where tenants have had broken items in their units and are not able to get a response and get them fixed from their landlord. I would name that this oftentimes happens with big corporate landlords, oftentimes who are out of state, oftentimes just they're non-responsive, which leads me to another bill that we will be having some discussion about around corporate ownership of single-family homes. This is a trend that we have seen across the country and in Minnesota, where big corporations like a Zillow, for example, come into communities and sometimes buy up entire blocks of single-family homes. And it's a barrier for people in those communities to purchase those homes because a big corporation can come in and forego an inspection and make a cash offer for over asking and swoop in and buy up, in some cases, hundreds of homes. So it really, it's extracting wealth from communities. And it really is a barrier for homeownership for people in those communities. And then they are, oftentimes absent landlords, they jack up the rent. So I should say single family homes, and then they convert them to rentals. So there was a bill last year that would outright ban that practice, which we could not get across the finish line. So we've been doing a lot of work on it over the interim. And instead of an outright ban, we are now trying to just disincentivize it with some fees and taxes, just making it less lucrative for these big corporations, because that's why they're doing it, because they're making a big profit off of it, making it less enticing for them to come into our communities and do that. Other sort of tenants' rights policies I would name, we heard a bill last week around notifying tenants on a lease that service animals are not subject to a pet fee. That is already the law. We're not changing the law, but what we are doing is it's adding the notification, because oftentimes tenants don't know that. So just making sure people have information. And two more things I will name. One is what's called a fair chance housing bill, and it's trying to get at the issue for people who have a previous history of incarceration or felony incarceration. Oftentimes that's a big barrier for them to secure housing. And so that policy is modeled after the ban the box legislation around employment. Having it be, that you have to get through a couple of layers before landlords can take that into account. So that can't be a previous felony conviction cannot be the first reason that you just turn somebody away for housing. And then the last one I will name is around non-discrimination for source of income. And so folks who are on public assistance for housing, that cannot be a reason that potential landlords turn people away. And right now that happens. It can be, they've got an opening, they're taking applications, they see somebody is on public assistance, they can just set that one to the side. And so this bill would make that not be legal, that can't be the first and only reason that you are declining to either process somebody's application or rent to them. So lots happening. It is going to be a very busy session. It is a short session. As you may or may not know, we have to be done by May 20th, which in some ways sounds like it's a ways off, but it really isn't. Our deadline to get bills through committees is March 22nd, which is a month and a day from today, which gives me little palpitations to just say that out loud. So we are working really hard to get as many bills through committee as we can, so we can keep them alive in the process. So with that, I will maybe just end with saying, as Dave Dunn mentioned, I too am hopeful. One, because of what I said earlier about how we've got so many amazing people who are really doing amazing work in our community and care so much about this issue. And two, I feel like we are doing really good work here in St. Paul. There are brilliant people on the housing committee who are also doing really good work, and really dedicated to making sure that everyone in our communities has a safe place to call home in an affordable way. And so an action item I would leave you with is, continuing to reach out to those who represent you and those who wish to represent you, as we are coming up in an election year. Make it known that this is an important issue to you and what you would like to see happen. Use your voices, because it absolutely matters. And so I will also put my contact information in the chat, and I'm happy to, reach out if you have questions in the future, or if there's ways that I can be helpful. And I'm happy to, I look forward to questions here this evening as well. So thank you.
This is Anna again with League of Women Voters, and thank you, Liz, for your presentation and the information of what's going on at the legislature, the Minnesota legislature right now. So we are now moving on to our question portion of the evening. And I just want to encourage people, if you want to ask questions, you can open the chat box. It's either at the bottom of your screen, or if it's hidden, sometimes it's the 3 dots. You have to click on that to bring up the chat box, and you can enter your questions in there. And I already have some, so I'll start with those. And the first question that I have is, it's for Senator Boldon. Would restrictions on corporate purchases of single-family homes apply to local LLCs that are mom and pop type landlords that own a few houses?
I really appreciate that question, and I should have mentioned this and I didn't. So thank you for the question. So the answer is no. It really, and that's very intentional. We are not aiming to impact local mom and pop folks who have a couple of units. And homeownership is a way to build wealth, and we don't, that's not the goal of the bill. It really is aimed at the big corporations. So right now we have our limit set at 20 units. It only affects entities who own more than 20 units.
Thank you. The next question we have, and I think this goes to Dave, is the question about the Echo Center. This commenter says the Echo Center is terrific. Is there a coordinated communication between Mayo Clinic, OMC, and Echo for those discharged, I'm assuming from the hospital maybe, who don't have shelter?
Yeah, thanks for the question. It's a good one. While not perfect, we do have some systems in place. We work with OMC, we work with Mayo every day when we have people being discharged. One of the challenges is sometimes, as the hospitals go through their discharge procedures, making sure that they do have those connections to the social workers and making those connections to housing. But there are those connections going on. They can always be enhanced, but those connections do exist.
Okay, thank you. Another question for Dave, though, if others want to jump in. Are people who don't have a job, how will they pay and stay? And maybe this is for Jeff too. Do they need to leave in the morning and be back in the evening to sleep? This questioner is just wondering. Because I know some of the shelter or the housing for homeless unhoused people, they have to leave during the day. So go ahead.
Yeah, I'll answer in a couple of ways. I think one, for just kind of housing in general, we have a lot of affordable units that have people who may not have income, whether that is, or have very limited income. And that's one of the nice things about paying 30% of your income in rent, is that it does fluctuate and allows a safe place for people to live, regardless of the level of income they have. So in those situations, if you have zero income and you can document that, then your rent is actually zero. For shelter and other places, yes, the Rochester Community Warming Center functions from 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. And then the Landing and Salvation Army operate day programs that go for the other portion of the day. And so there is a continuous movement of people experiencing homelessness in our community that's happening, and there's no one place for them to necessarily be all of the time.
Okay, thank you. And I just want to remind people that this is being recorded and will be available on our website and Facebook, and I assume maybe on the AAUW, but for sure on the LWV. Another question for Senator Boldon. How would the source of income ever be regulated? This questioner is asking.
That's a good question. So I will say that's not my bill, so I'm making a bit of an assumption here, but my understanding is, it would be, somebody would have to make a complaint, to file a complaint, and then it would have to be, you would have to they would have a right to take them to court, essentially, if they felt that they had been discriminated against. So, which admittedly is a limitation. I mean, it's very difficult to, enforce that on the front end. I'm not sure actually how you would do that necessarily, but it offers a remedy, if you will, for people who, believe and have been discriminated against.
Yeah, Senator, if I could just add one thing, because this is something I'm extraordinarily excited about. So as someone who oversees rental assistance programs, one of the biggest challenges that we have is just unilaterally a landlord may decide that they do not want to accept them. What this would do is it would not allow them to discriminate based on the form of payment. So people who would pay with rental assistance voucher or other partially publicly funded rent could live wherever they could afford to live and chose to live. And so we wouldn't have to rely necessarily on finding people who are willing to accept rental assistance. And so it would have a big impact, I think, here in helping people find a place. One of the challenges that we see today is when people do get rental assistance, if their landlord doesn't accept it, they have a very difficult choice to make of either accepting the rental assistance and potentially breaking a lease, or denying rental assistance, which in some ways could essentially have been their golden ticket to be able to thrive.
Thank you, Dave. Another question we have is, are there other communities that Rochester and Olmsted County are looking to as models for how to tackle the complex problem of homelessness? A couple I've heard of, this a questioner is stating, I have heard of that have a coordinated community strategy are Duluth and Fargo, and I think this goes to Dave.
Yes, as part of kind of our collaborative efforts, I think one of the things we'll be doing this spring is a couple of road trips. And actually one of the places that we want to go to is Duluth, because we know of some of the things that are going on up there. We're also looking at Fargo. We're looking at places like Rockford, Illinois, that have really done a nice job with getting to what's called functional zero of homelessness, meaning that there are resources available for people who fall into homelessness that we can make it rare, brief, and non-recurring, and then kind of get them housed relatively quickly. So we're doing that. We're looking at some of these other communities. These are fixable issues, and other places around the country are doing it. We're making a lot of progress, but we have some great examples and appreciate the ones you gave.
Thank you. And I guess I'm going to address this one to Dave also. Senator Boldon mentioned the parking requirements legislation, the application fees. How much of a problem is that in Rochester?
I think the application fees is another wonderful opportunity. Now, it does come with a little bit of a challenge. So as the Olmsted County Housing and Redevelopment Authority, the organization that I work for, we do have about 300 housing units that we own. And so what happens is that the rental application fees do at times cover a part of those costs associated with renting the unit, whether that is a background check, whether that's just some staff time. The problem is that these application fees sometimes can be $100 or $200. And then when you do, as Senator Boldon talked about, 4, 5, or 6 of these just to find a place to live, you might be out $1,000 and have nothing to show for it other than just 5 people telling you no. So it certainly has an impact when people are looking for housing. And remember that it's not just that application fee, it's also that deposit in that first month's rent. So one of the challenges that we see now are deposits might be, 2 months rent. And if your rent is $1,500, then you have to come up with $3,000 for a deposit plus a $1,500 first month's rent. You've got to come up with $4,500 just to find a place to call home. So anything that can be done in the legislative level to help with that would be greatly appreciated from my perspective.
Thank you. And this question is for Jeff Urban. I have a question. The church I belong to, we do like outreach to women's shelter. And we go there, a group of us, and we, do cleaning up the landscape or sorting out all the donated items. Are there things like that that local people can do, or you have volunteer opportunities like that?
Yeah, for sure. We've got a number of groups that come out from youth groups to adults, and we have people that take over landscaping areas, and they work with freshening paint up in units and kind of a whole mixture of things. So yeah, absolutely.
Okay, and I saw that you put your contact information in the chat, I believe, so
Yeah.
people can contact you directly.
I see the question there too about First Homes. That's kind of across the hallway from me. And so,
Oh, good.
yeah, First Homes is growing. They've got 270. They'll have really close to 300 units over the next year, probably in the land trust. And so if you don't know what First Homes is, just kind of think of it. We talk about it being like a first step. If the market is out of reach for people, what this does is you kind of take off the value of the land and you buy the house itself. So the land is in a trust and it's an income qualified buyer. And so they have to be under 80% of Dave's numbers over there of his area median income. And if you're under the 80% mark, typically you're still a renter. And so what's been great about First Homes, it's moving people that are renters, but have a little bit extra into home ownership. The catch with it is when you sell your house, the equity you gain, you're going to split. So half of it goes with you and half of it buys that house price down for the next person. So it doesn't go all the way up to the sale price. So if you can go to the market, buy a house, go do it. If you can't, this is a great way for a renter to move into home ownership affordably. And there are a number of new units right now we have available. If you go to the First Homes website, and you will see some brand new row homes, some condos that are awesome. $200,000 plus an HOA for a brand new 2 or 3 bedroom unit close to downtown. Yeah, it's fantastic.
And so another question that I see is this submitter. My granddaughter recently applied to multiple colleges, 10 to 15, with a single application. Could we do something similar to for rental housing? And that goes to the application fee. And I'll let whoever wants to.
Yeah, I saw that and said I love that idea in the chat. I think it's a wonderful opportunity. The challenge is, of course, different property management companies have their own processes and procedures in place to do this. That being said, I think when you talk about partnerships, what we want is a lower application fee or an affordable application fee. Is there a way that we can provide some assistance in helping to get some of those things kind of jointly put together, whether that's working with, one background check company or one different thing where we can, not where government necessarily does any of that, but is that things we can help facilitate to occur to help to minimize those true costs associated with doing applications.
Thank you. And I saw that Liz Boldon put a link for the homelessness. I think that, Liz, what was the thing that you put in there that's going to be tomorrow? I
just put my email address in the chat.
Oh, your email. Okay.
Yeah.
But there,
I was gonna say I put the link, or we put the link in. It's to the committee meeting tomorrow.
Oh, okay. That's who put it in. Thank you. So I just this is a good time for me to point out that League of Women Voters has the state league has a lobby and observer corps that we people all over the state, members all over the state participate in. And what we do is we and Amy Cockett is a part of this as we attend via Zoom, committee hearings and write up and see and support or at least inform our members of what is happening in the committees and the positions that we care about. So if anybody is interested in doing that, we are always happy to have people join and let us know about that. Let me see if there's any other new questions really quickly. And then
While you're looking, Anna, could I just add one
yes,
thing?
please.
I just want to, Dave Dunn mentioned this, and I just want to highlight it, that we are, again, another reason we are very fortunate in Olmsted County. We are ahead of the curve, sort of in many ways. He mentioned that the county owns, I think you said 300 units of housing. That is very unusual for counties. And that's another sort of policy that we are looking at, ways to sort of expand that to other counties. Because it is a way to offer more affordable housing to more folks. And in some ways, if we could argue the merits of this, but, housing is a human right. Having housing be a sort of a commodity that's, people profit off of, one could argue that's not the right way we should be doing that. And so having counties, own property and it being the landlord essentially is a way to get affordable housing to more folks. And so we are talking about policies to support that. There are other counties who wish to do that. And so thinking about, using Olmsted County as a model and sort of spreading that to other counties, I think would be valuable as well.
Thank you. And it is 8:20, a little after 8:20. So I think this will be the last question. I think this is a good question. And it's a little bit long. And I'll have you all three have your input. In our community, there are a lot of people who feel fearful, uncomfortable, or unsafe when they see people experiencing homelessness. There are a lot of community leaders on this call. What do you think we could be doing in the public conversation to encourage more compassion, dignity, and solution-focused approach instead of an invisibilization, penalization approach? And I'm sure I messed that invisibilization word up, but I'll let you all comment on that question.
I'll jump in to go first. I love that question. It's a fantastic question. I don't know that I have like a direct answer other than we need to continue to have conversations like this, I think. We have amazing resources in our community, and I think all of us and, leaders especially need to be mindful of, the verbiage that we use and the way we are talking about our unhoused neighbors and the policies that we put forth and really think through the impacts that has on people. And is it really in alignment with that humanization and support, or is it moving us in another direction? I think continuing to lift the issue and raise the issue and, as much as we can humanize our neighbors and, many of us are one event away from homelessness. I mean, the reality is many of us are closer to that than we maybe would like to think about. And so, having conversations like this and community conversations, I think is really important.
Yeah, I would say, I think what happens when we get to know someone and sit down with somebody who may be on the fringes. So, going to a place like the Landing or the Warming Center and volunteering, talking to people at the gas station. I think when you get to know people and get to understand why they are where they are, that really helps a lot. Having lunch with someone instead of just giving even a handout and sitting down with somebody, I think can go a long way. And I think too, rolling up our sleeves and I think that whole thing about it's the other, right? Whatever is other or different than us is what makes us scared. And we find out that you sit down, you start talking to somebody at the bus stop or anywhere, and you find that they aren't that different from you and I. And I think it really gives, and this is where like a lot of Dave's workers would really, his staff have a good perspective of this because they get to know these clients so well over a period of time and realize that it isn't one thing. It's a number of issues quite often, and it takes time. I don't know. Yeah, that's a great question, but it's a challenge.
Yeah, I think that the nice thing about speaking last is I can just say ditto. Because I think the answers that Senator Bolden and Jeff gave were wonderful. I think it really is getting to know people. It's making those human connections. It's being able to hear some stories of people and understand that, you know, this isn't a them or us. We're all in this together. We're all humans. We all live here. We're all trying to thrive and do the best that we can. And so I think for people just to understand that people experiencing homelessness aren't any different than the rest of us. There's you know, just kind of the way it is. And so I think when we do that work, it helps us all understand one another a little more. And just one last thing I'd like to do as we wrap up tonight, I think that the great work that we were able to talk about in Olmsted County is in large part because of our Olmsted County Board of Commissioners as well. And so they do a great job of providing leadership in the community. And I see Commissioner Podolsky Smith is on the call tonight. I just wanted to thank her for her leadership at the county level on this issue. And I'm sure there might be others of you, but you're not up on my screen right now. But it really does take champions and, you know, people who are willing to take chances and do things and look at things a little bit differently. And that's why having elected officials at the local and state level who are focused on this make jobs like mine and Jeff's so much easier.
Thank you all. And we've talked a lot tonight about the policies and the structures to solve homelessness. No, we'll never completely solve it, but to remember at the heart of this are people, and which each of you know from your work and your experience and your care for this issue. As there is, and I'll give you each a chance at the very end to add your last thoughts. And as there is never enough time to cover all the issues in a limited time and settings such as this, please feel free to contact the speakers directly if your questions are not addressed. I want to thank Dave Dunn from Olmsted County, Jeff Urban, Outreach Pastor at Bear Creek, and Senator Liz Boldon for participating in tonight's event. Thank you for your service to the community and your work on housing and homelessness prevention. We thank you for that. So each of you, we'll start with Dave Dunn, followed by Pastor Jeff, and then Senator Liz Boldon, and then we will complete our program.
Thank you again for inviting me to be here tonight. It's truly an honor to get to speak to all of you about the great work going on in our community and just to share a small part of it that I'm a part of. And I just want to share with you, yes, housing is a significant issue, but I really am optimistic. I really do believe that we have some amazing people doing great work here locally, and the creativity of Jeff Urban and Bear Creek campus. I can assure you, we looked at that campus. We wanted nothing to do with it. We had we thought that this was not something that you could make successful, and people like Jeff prove us wrong. And that's what we need, and that's what we'll continue to do. And it's just amazing. And so I want to thank you all tonight. And then remember, at the forefront of this, it's our neighbors, and it's about people, and it's about making sure that everybody in Olmsted County has a place to call.
Yeah, I would echo those thoughts. And I totally agree with Senator Bolden and Dave as well with this, kind of positive look at things, because I really do believe we've got a fantastic community. We've got a city and a county. We've got major employers like the Mayo Clinic, DMC, other groups that really do want to see progress, and they really want to work together, and they're doing it. And so it's slow sometimes, the process is, and it's painful, and we got to go back and forth and work with different people. But I really think we've got a lot of good momentum, and I just think stay engaged and keep asking questions. All that feedback to your elected officials is fantastic, and just let's keep moving the needle forward, right? Little by little, and we'll see progress. So.
Well, now I'm going last, and I can just say ditto to what they said. I just would add, again, my thanks for everyone being on the call tonight, and really, as has been said, to refocus to really that it's people that we're talking about. It's moms and dads and kids, and our neighbors and family members and loved ones, and everyone deserves to have a safe place to call home. And so I do think I feel positive about that because of all the amazing people on the call here. It really does take a partnership from the state to the county to the city to our local organizations and nonprofits. I see Dan Fifield from the Landing here and others, folks doing amazing work, and it takes all of us, sort of moving together to solve this problem. And, we know what the solution is, but we have to keep working together to get there. So thank you.
And thank you, everyone. And I just want to point out that we have another event coming up. It's a Soil and Water Conservation District event. It's going to be similar to this. If you want to know more about what they're doing locally in the southeast area of Minnesota. And thank you all for coming, and thank you, speakers, for sharing your time with us this evening. Good night.